Alright, oops, always forget to turn the music back on as we get out of the introduction. But if you're just tuning in, you have not missed much. We are currently in game number 2 for the Acer Team Story Cup. Today's match is between Western Wolves and Mouz Sports. Let's epic zoom out by mistake because I meant to swap the scoreboards around, but here we are in the top left corner of the map. Playing for Mouz Sports and currently up 1-0 in this year is just taking down Sun, the Joker of Western Wolves. It is Mouz Sports Lucifron. And his opponent in the lower right gets a big shout out for showing me one of the most entertaining games, PvZ versus Hyun. Recently, it is for Western Wolves. Mad Cats, it is StarNaN. StarNaN, as I said earlier, though, pretty cool guy, really nice guy, which is really important. I'll talk about that in a second, but also pretty darn good at this game. He might not have the biggest, most impressive results in the world. You know, he hasn't exactly won a dream hack or anything like that. But I've had the good fortune of seeing him in seeing him in Western Wolves, but also seeing him in Go for StarCrafts and catching him from time to time on random ladder matches that we cast for YouTube. So really happy got to see him here today. Also has hung out in the channel before, so gets a little bit of an extra shout out for that. But as per my awkward introduction, there's a game not too long ago in Whirlwind that StarNaN may have lost against Hyun, but it was one of the more entertaining ZVPs I've seen in recent days. And he got down about it afterwards. He didn't want to talk about much, but like I really enjoyed the game. So really excited to see him once again. It might not be ZVP, but it's TVP, and again, gonna have his work cut out for him. It is Lucifron. Now, the advantage of being next up on the roster, you know, you get to kind of sit back. You get to watch the people that are casting. You can ask your teammate who just got knocked out, you know, what did he do? What was his build order? You know, does he like to drop? Does he like to go for mech? You know, you could get that valuable information by sitting on the sidelines waiting to come out number 2. But at the same time, StarNaN may have just woken up, said, screw it. Want to play some StarCraft 2? You never know. Some players have a lot of preparation involved with these matches. Some players don't. I was really surprised when I was talking to, well, I probably shouldn't say his name, I won't. But he basically said, like, for the Acer Team Story Cup, he was like, yeah, I just play. I don't watch games beforehand. If I'm on deck, I just make sure I'm not in a ladder match. And I was like, oh. Because I always naturally assume, like, I'm not a competitor by any means, but if I was, like, I would sit here, I would totally be studying up on my opponent. If I knew I was on deck, I'd be watching the cast, writing down build orders, being a total nerd about it. But StarNaN getting some pretty good scout stuff. Does come back for scout number 2. Now, curiously enough, we did have a Reaper come out of Lucifron. This kind of delayed, though. It's getting here at a time when the Mothership Core is already going to be out, or at least coming out as it reaches the base. Probe kills will probably be minimum. Can maybe get 1 if he's lucky, but for the most part, this should get shut down. Unless he goes to the middle of nowhere with that Mothership Core initially. We'll get a second probe kill, Lucifron, and might even get away. Wow. Well played with the Reaper. So it basically pays for itself, and that's always a good cost-efficient feel. You know, you don't need to be a cheap guy to appreciate cost efficiency. And this probe, if it picks off the SCV, might be even better for him. It's actually getting really low. I haven't seen an SCV die to a probe in a long time, but okay, with the rings popping out just in the nick of time, StarNaN will retreat with that probe. Now, more impressively was actually that probe getting out alive. Keeping this hidden on the upper easternmost portion of the map over here. Getting ready to put down pylons for later on, maybe just hold the watchtower. I mean, keeping this alive is kind of a big deal. But natural base is established for both players. Lucifron just hasn't moved his yet. Gonna definitely be sticking with that bio, that +1 timing coming out so beautifully. Stim is, of course, gonna make it a little bit difficult to really push in. That is the biggest disadvantage of Stim. It makes you attack incredibly fast, but strips away your health, and without medevacs to make up that difference, a Mothership Core popping up and Overcharge has no problem dealing with Stim Marines, Stim Marauders, even if it's that early push, but we're not seeing that early of a push. Just playing defensively for now. Lucifron may try and come across the field with probably, I'd say, after 2 or 3 Marines are added to this, if he's going to push at all. But where is this orbital going? What? What? What is happening? Lucifron, okay. Alright, kids, stop arguing. I'm going to turn this orbital and go right home. So it puts it back in the natural. Obviously a misclick, it happens, not a big deal. The worst misclick, by the way, if you guys aren't Terran, I urge you to play Terran at least once in your life so you can experience the frustration of lifting an orbital to transfer it, and then dropping mules and re-rallying, only to realize that the command center that you lifted, rather than landing at the base, chose to rally to your mineral lines with the SCVs, so you've got a floating orbital over your mineral line doing absolutely nothing, and you're like, oh, why did I do that? But again, we got +1 armor coming out of StarNaN. Love this move. I mean, obviously it didn't work out so great for San last game, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Again, we saw how durable those Zealots were, those warp-ins, the constant harass, unable to clean up easily, even though he didn't win the game. Those Zealots did so much more damage than they should have, and that's all thanks in large part to that bonus armor they had upgraded on them. Already such beefy, meaty units, you give them some armor, they're a little bit tougher to deal with. And let's not forget, a head-on engagement, Guardian Shield reduces the damage of range by 2. If you got 2 armor upgrades, 4 damage from a 7 damage Marine, this guy does less than half damage to your Zealots. So, again, armor is always nice. Who cares how fast you attack with Stim if all you do is tickle? But similar style that we just saw out of San is that Warp Prism coming out. I love that we're seeing Warp Prisms utilized more frequently lately. There was that patch. And if you guys remember, everyone thought the game was going to break when the Warp Prisms got a speed buff. Everyone was like, oh my god, that's it. Game's broken, GG, how will we ever deal with Protoss? But we never saw any real, like, super duper enhancement of Warp Prism usage after that. However, fast forward now, like almost 2 months later, we see Warp Prisms all the time. And I absolutely love it. Seeing the drop harass capabilities, the Warp-ins if you will. Whether it's Dark Templar or just Zealots, we got Charge coming out again, so this is exactly what StarNaN is going to be trying to copy from San. Even the Twilight Council coming out, or sorry, the Templar Archives coming out pretty quick. Again, I love Storm openers opposed to Colossus openers, but sadly they're somewhat less durable than Colossus, as Templar are rather fragile, but if they go left uncontested, that Storm is so hard to deal with, and of course hits a lot more units than a single Colossus beam does, but 3 Zealots loaded up, ready to go. And the army of Lucifron is moving out, so some unfortunate timings for him, but he does have 5 Marines here still available. There might not be charged, but again, these are Zealots with +1 armor. So yeah, 2 armor. Loses the Warp Prism right away, though. That's really unfortunate for StarNaN. Now he can't actually continue to harass this. And with the SCVs buffering for the Marines, these SCVs might be low, but I don't believe he really lost any. If one, if that. Because, of course, let's not forget, San picked off 2 outside of his opponent's base, so... Oh my, that is actually really unfortunate for StarNaN. That was a big, important part of this game. He needed to make sure that Lucifron wasn't pushing too early, that he was forced to come back home and deal with that. Now the advancing force here, I mean, there's Guardian Shields, Force Fields, Mothership Core already preemptively overcharging. This isn't the scariest push in the world from Lucifron. However, he does have to be careful. Oh, some pretty good Force Fields, but they only catch a couple of Marines. That one little empty space allowed the Marauders to slip right past out of there. And evacuating out of the photon overcharge, Lucifron doesn't lose too much. And of course, there's another overcharge available for the main. So despite the fact that he's going to drop and run around. Oh, but here we go. Lucifron again with the multi-prong to hit. Will this go to the natural or the third? Looks like he's just going to stem right into the natural. And StarNaN not going to be too distracted by this. Sees the army coming. Oh, focusing down the sentries. Nicely done out of Lucifron. If he can back out with his army, keep the majority of it alive, more power to him. But of course, the drop in the main never got executed while this happened. No overcharge was going, but the Templar sitting at the cliff were scaring these medevacs. Feedback can just rack your day. For those who don't know, feedback basically does 1 damage per energy on the unit that it feedbacks from. So a medevac with 131 health, if it has 131 energy and it gets feedbacked, kablooey! As it's a spell and armor is negated. But level 2 armor upgrades just finishing up here. Going to start his weapon upgrade, so going 2-1 instead of 3-0. Not a bad choice, as 2 armor is more than enough to really buffer for your units. But focusing down the medevacs, Lucifron coming in a little bit blindly here initially, but not going to finish the medevacs. The feedback could have destroyed that one. Not sure why he didn't. I guess trying to save the energy for storms if necessary, but... Slowly advancing up the western half of the map, we do have StarNaN placing down some proximity pylons in order to try and get up to probably about here if he could. This will be the perfect pylon place for him to just kind of meander past the army and walk in. Well, I should say the perfect place would probably be within the main of Lucifron, but that's not going to happen. We're talking realistically here, folks. In the meantime, we do have that robotics bay coming up next. So Lucifron You know what's really cool, actually? This is really intelligent by StarNaN, actually, just thinking about it. Not to overpraise this guy, but actually, hang on, we're going to have a Storm drop along with some Zealots here in the mineral line. Beautiful Storm. Not going to kill a lot of SCVs, but damn, these guys are squishy. Charge is done now, too, which is a lot different than the first round of Zealots that came in here. Mothership Core, or sorry, not Mothership Core, Warp Prism is focused down, so sadly, no round 2 of Warpins, but these SCVs have no health, and coming back to mine, these Zealots are just going to tear them to bits. Lucifron perhaps sending these SCVs back a little bit too early. But anyways, before we have the next engagement happen, what I was really excited about is by opening the same way as StarNaN, StarNaN puts Lucifron in the state of mind that, okay, I'm going to deal with a lot of Storms this game. I'm going to deal with a lot of Templar. Let's get that Ghost Academy up. He didn't do it last game because he thought maybe it'd be unnecessary, but this game, we've got the swap coming afterwards, and because Lucifron is currently just investing in medevacs and not Vikings, the Colossus may catch him completely off guard. So as long as StarNaN keeps the presence of these Templar known, if he makes it look like he's constantly reinforcing and bulking his army based on these Templar, he may be able to catch Lucifron off guard with his Colossus tech swap. Now that being said, EMPs are good against anything and everything a Protoss has, whether it's Colossus or Storms. Stripping the shields off of a unit is pretty darn good. So it's not like Lucifron's going to be unable, he's not going to be unable to hold against the Colossus swap, but catching this initially, this could be devastating, because he's simply going to have only Bio to deal with this. He's been putting some scans off, hasn't scanned the mates, ooh. Oh god, so much tech missing from Lucifron's vision. No additional Stargates, or Starports. Stargates, of course, would be the Protoss airbase, but no additional Starports down. He may have to go up to 3. Not something you typically want to do, but hold that thought for the time being. We got a big drop in the main going off. Lucifron gonna see the Colossus now. There's no extended thermal lens, so this thing has to be careful. Zealot's gonna provide some really nice buffer space actually, but Lucifron could probably drop on top of the Colossus and kill it, but same time, third base is gonna be under attack, but beautiful Storms do clean this up, and with a single photon cannon in the army here, you should be able to deal with this quite nicely, but Colossus does go down. Storm is gonna do what it can, but of course Storm not nearly as good as the Colossus for consistent damage. I like the probe pull out of StarNaN, gonna make sure to minimize his losses in that regard, but here comes the Colossus again. If Lucifron just picks up, where's the anti-air? There's no Stalkers here. The Stalkers are just coming. No Phoenix to Vanguard for this. It's just an awkward Colossus stuck on the side of a cliff. Meanwhile, the Warpin is cleaned up pretty quickly. Zealot's going to charge right on in. Here comes the Archon to do what it can, but again with the pickup. Again, Lucifron is going to escape with the majority of this drop left alive. And a big push coming on the western half of the map. Man, with this many Marauders, he could just focus on the Nexus, ideally and potentially, but this one Marauder versus 3 Stalkers can actually win this fight if he's paying attention, but he's not. We'll keep an eye on the Hero Marauder to see if he lives or dies. Looks like he's going to die, though. Oh, no! Lucifron picks him up! What? And he gets the pylon with the very last shot! Okay, not exactly hype-worthy, but still cool to see. Still cool to see. But we have that Ghost transition, but also, and more importantly, we have Vikings coming out. That second starport was added with a reactor, so 4 Vikings at a time will be enough to deal with the Colossus. Now this is when StarNaN kind of has to mix his forces. He no longer has that tech advantage of saying, I either have Storms or Colossus, Nina or Boo Boo, what are you going to do about it? He's going to have to incorporate both and use them very effectively, whether it's EMPs on top of the Templar, or whether the Templar feed backing the Ghost before they can do anything. It's going to come down to a lot of micro-control here in the late game. Not something that often happens, but it's going to be really important. Beautiful Blink 4 picks off one more Marauder, but StarNaN, of course, not going to over-dedicate this, not going to over-press the issue. 4th base is going to need to be cancelled by the looks of it. Command Center, rip. Rip, rip. So death. Much Zealot. Very scary. Meanwhile, it looks like Medevac in the main was picked off before the drop really happened. One Marine going to scare the Stalkers away. Okay, Blink back comes to finish it, but Command Center gonna go not canceled. Okay. Lucifron, middle of the map. Oh, engagement is starting, but I want to see no cancel goes off. Of course, the importance is on this half of the field, but the Vikings are left somewhat uncontested. The Stalkers just now getting up on top of them, but doing more than enough damage to the Colossus. Actually, I take that back. Doesn't quite kill that Colossus. Never mind, it does go down just barely. And with one low health Colossus, mostly Stalkers versus a Marauder, primarily Marauder, almost no Marine composition, he will be forced to back off for the time being. Now this is where it gets kind of funky. If StarNaN starts investing in, say, Immortals to deal with the Marauders better, then the Marines are going to run right over them. The Ghosts are going to just EMP everything and there's not going to be an issue. Both players, this is why I love TVP, guys. Let's say this is any other matchup. One player ekes ahead, they snowball out of control. This matchup, even if you get ahead, which both players have not, they're both been trading pretty effectively, the reality is you're going to have the capability to deal with what your opponent has. Now, the one scary thing I would say for Lucifron, by dedicating so much to these Vikings, his medevac count is going to dwindle. He's actually kind of starving for medevacs, if that's a sense that I can use. Because every time he stims, these two medevacs that have no energy do not, I repeat, do not have the capability to heal this up. On top of that, he doesn't have really... Basically, if storms go off, things are going to die is what this boils down to, but StarNaN hasn't overinvested into storms. Kind of wish he'd put a couple more Templar available. Actually, I take that back. Where are these other 3? There's 5 Templars somewhere here. Oh, 3 of them freshly warped in, but... Alright, Vikings are going to push back the air units. Mothership core goes down, but the photon overcharge core is put off. Nice time warp. Almost kills a few units. If they had been in there for like a second longer, the storm may have just done enough damage, but... Archons, of course, despite the EMPs, still have a large health pool. You need 2 EMPs to knock these suckers down a peg. But looks like we actually have a warp-in. Massive warp-in! Oh my god, how many gateways worth of warp-ins is this? There are 11 gateways. They're trying to warp in 11 zealots. That Viking, those 2 Vikings cut those warp-ins by half by picking them off early, but getting the Ghost Academy means there will be no more ghosts for quite some time. This is when StarNaN can actually start investing in the Templar. He knows that his opponent has to rebuild these things, and he's got a small window of opportunity, but Ghost withstanding, he's got a lot of Vikings, a lot of Ghosts, playing this in a very Empire Happy-esque style, going for that beautiful late game composition against StarNaN. But StarNaN, of course, let's not drive too much attention away from him. He's had this army that's been somewhat unbreakable, but so is Lucifron. We've seen harass going off for the majority of this game. There hasn't actually been a lot of head-on collisions, and that's because both players kind of, there's this silent nod, this wonderful handshake that says, I respect that you have a large army, and I don't want to lose mine, so I'm going to play as safe as I can for the time being. Yeah, Ghosts and Vikings. Let's talk about why this is such a wonderful composition. We look at the unit composition right now. How many observers do you guys see? 2? 1? 2. If the Vikings pick off these 2 observers and all these Ghosts cloak, there's no scans. There's no quick overseer warp-ins. You have to deal with the fact that your opponent's going to have these cloak ghosts that might stop you. But I take this back because we actually don't have cloak researched. Oh no! That actually strips a lot of the power of these ghosts away. Being able to cloak and advance forward to double snipe Templar or get EMPs off undetected. I mean, these are critical parts about owning a ghost, but Big Blink Forward's going to get 2 of those Vikings immediately, and despite the massive EMPs, we got StarNaN going to try to take this engagement. However, we got storms available plenty on these Templar, and these Vikings are going to get storm-kited to death. Only 3 remain, and they've got no health. They cannot engage again, but sadly, for StarNaN, most of his Colossus were taken out in the process. Meanwhile, Warpin's here on the other side of the map. What? He kills the pylon? Did one Marine just kill a pylon before, like, 11 Zealots could warp in? Is that what I hath done just witnessed? Well, one Marine's not going to do much against this warp in of 5 Zealots, however. Looks like the push is going to happen once again. We got a cannon here available, actually, and let's not forget how durable these Zealots are. Currently on 2-3, coming up on 3-3 shortly, but upgrade advantage definitely in the favor of Lucifron. Get some beautiful EMPs off on those front lines, and let's not forget Ghost deal the bonus damage versus the Zealots. 26 a shot. But even without that bonus damage, even against armored units like Stalkers, 13 damage is still a lot. Looks like he will be pushed back into his base, but beautiful storms as he baits him into this. However, the medevacs will keep this army alive. The Colossus does go down. The cannons are focused immediately, but upon seeing that Zella warp, and Lucifron is going to back on out of there. Not over-dedicate his stay, not press the issue. And looks like we got, again, a pretty even resources lost game so far. Wonderful trading, beautiful control to both of these players, and this is again why I love this matchup, guys. There's no crazy snowballing unless players are bad. Lucifron StarNaN so well met, so well matched, and even though the harass isn't exactly insane and the workers kill tap isn't in the hundreds, we're getting close to that split map scenario. We're gonna have the late game of late games. And sometimes this is when composition becomes incredibly important. It's very easy to just hold down the Z button and you warp in like 20 Zealots, but sometimes you might need that 1 Templar or 3 Stalkers to blink forward to pick off a medevac. These small, minor decisions can sometimes cost you the game, and it's going to be relying so much heavier on StarNaN's army composition than it will for Lucifron's. Because of course for StarNaN, his tech is slower. Warping in Templar, they can't instantly storm, they gotta wait for that energy to generate. Making a Colossus, that's not exactly fast, and he's only on, I think, 1 Robo? Yeah, I could be wrong. Oh, 2 Robos. Okay, so 2 Robos is fine, actually. But still, the point is his production is going to be significantly slower than Lucifron. So if Lucifron keeps trading evenly, he should be able to sort of eke ahead, albeit just barely, but a couple more workers were slaughtered by this Archon by the looks of it. Does go down, however. StarNaN boldly taking a base on Lucifron's half of the field. I guess this might work because he's realized how uncontested this half of the map has been. This area has gone unchecked, I suppose, for quite some time. StarNaN with some really nice rounds, actually. A couple stalkers getting up here, so that could be enough to drive the whole army back, but it's going to be enough to draw the attention of Lucifron at the very least. Yeah, a couple Marauders being sent, but 2 Marauders can deal with 2 stalkers pretty easily, and of course they're out of the range of the Planetary Fortress, unfortunately. Checking the tag, is High-Sec auto-tracking? It is, so he's got the bonus range, but even then, behind the mineral lines is a little bit too far, I guess. Is building armor available? No building armor, but we'll probably see that if Lucifron starts having enough fluid excess resources. Well, you know, Lucifron's also one of those players who, again, I mentioned this kind of a cool story mode at the start of the game, who will go for nukes if necessary. Doesn't have one coming yet, but actually, no, I take that back. Without Cloak, it's going to be very difficult to utilize nukes, so still no Cloak of these ghosts. Not sure what the delay is on that, whether that's a mistake or intentional. I think he may just be assuming that his opponent is going to have way too much detection, maybe, but army is going to be driven up here to the northern base, and of course Lucifron is actually in a bit of a dire situation. You know, we've been focusing so much on the army here, but the reality is his economy has been in shambles. Big storm goes off, but doesn't kill much. But this is really the only mining base left of Lucifron. He's down to 1 base, whereas StarNaN, okay, he's mining out his 3rd. His 4th base has been mining healthily for quite some time, and this 5th base on Lucifron's half of the map just now being established. StarNaN with a massive bang too could just warp in like probably 15 or 20 cannons would be alright too. He's not in any real danger, and this actually is getting a little scary. Lucifron has been trading evenly all game. Has mined out at this point. Well, not mined out yet, but getting there. His saturation is going to be lacking. A big warping coming in once again. Even though there's a Planetary Fortress, I need to remind you guys, these are Zealots with 3 armor upgrades, 3 weapon upgrades. They can focus this down if they want, but looks like going to catch a lot of the ghosts initially here, but the Vikings will catch the Colossus. A bit of a side swipe from both players. Tit for tat, if you will, but going to push into the base. StarNaN with no Mothership Core sadly can't photon overcharge this. But I guess this late in the game, though, a Mothership Core not as big of a deal as I think you might want it to be. Ooh, the Dark Templar, late game Dark Templar might catch Lucifron off guard. I don't know, but beautiful storms coming down. They're not going to kill anything thanks to these medevacs, however. But the best storms ever. Another storm coming down as well. Most of the army eats it, but again, there's so many medevacs. This is the crucial part. This sort of Achilles heel I was talking about earlier too, where bad Terran players will get complacent. They won't build medevacs. They won't have this in their army when they've got a lot of ghosts and bio involved. But Lucifron, who he had no medevacs for a long time. If you guys remember, he had like 2 medevacs with no energy for the longest time. However, has finally gotten his medevac count up to a very healthy amount. Looks to be taking his own base here shortly, kind of realizing that maybe his economy could use a bit of a boost, but a bit of a kickstart. But plasma shields even being upgraded. StarNaN, I feel, with these Dark Templar though, this small tech swap is going to catch Lucifron off guard pretty bad. There are turrets at this base, so there's no way he's running into the planetary with it. But running into the main, picking off tech, you know, catching him unguarded, unabated with those Dark Templar could win him the game, but Lucifron finally is getting Ghost Cloaking. This is what I've been like waiting for all game. Because with such a high Viking count, oh man, storm's constantly going off on this base. Lucifron can't catch a break, but with such a high Viking count, Colossus become less viable. How do you... I mean, like, eventually he's going to have to give away the Vikings, but for now, as long as they get the... If they snipe off that observer, right? Like, their job is to kill the Colossus first and foremost. But if they snipe off the few observers that are on the map, and, oh, look at this. StarNaN actually knows this is a huge danger, seeing that massive Viking count. So he's making more observers right now. Really important and really intelligent. Because, again, if you guys have never seen Ghost Viking in full effect, then you don't know how dangerous it can be for a Protoss player to have no detection. Oh, man, but sniping off units here for free. Such a big, scary army. Let's not forget, too, while I was talking about Dark Templar being warped in and going for the production cycles of Lucifron, same thing could happen here. If Lucifron pushes into the natural, if he kills those gateways, beautiful snipe control, by the way. That storm still goes off, but sniping versus Templar is such a difficult art. I'll talk about that probably in a moment if the game extends too much longer, but he will get in here and force an engagement. StarNaN either has to go for a base raid or he has to come back home and defend. He cannot sit idle at his 4th base like this. So Archon's a little tentative to engage. Resources lost going to start racking up for him. He's in a really dangerous spot. These Vikings are all so low, though. If they keep clumping up, one good storm could kill almost 21 Vikings. But of course, getting that storm off is nothing more than a pipe dream for the time being. Realizing this production is in danger, StarNaN, what will you do? Simply sitting idly by in the middle of the map will not cut it. You gotta go hard or you gotta go home. One or the other, because you're losing everything. I mean, the best thing you can do right now is warp in 10 Zealots somewhere just so he uses up his bank. I mean, I don't know. Gonna push here into the base of Lucifron again. They're a very important base. Gonna be spam repaired, but it's not gonna hold on. Not versus the full force of this many Zealots, this many Archons. Planetary will go down, and now both players actually have no income. Well, actually, never mind. I take that back. StarNaN still has income. I meant to say Lucifron has no income. But StarNaN, despite his wonderful income, has no production. He's just lost his Dark Shrine. He's losing his Templar Archives, his Robobay, his Gateways. He's losing everything he has in the means of producing an army. So the advantage is, alright, he's putting down a ton of Gateways right now. He's got like 3 at his 3rd base, 4 at his 4th base. He's not out of this, but he's lost such a large critical part of his infrastructure. It's not going to be exactly easy to come back, but look at the supplies right now. Lucifron, with what is actually no income for the time being. Long distance mining off of this, just now establishing the orbital. He's got no means of repairing, much less reproducing this army. And a beautiful storm comes off. Can these ghosts get the snipes they need? So this is what I was going to talk about before too. Snipe at the same range as feedback. And of course the feedback essentially will almost always kill a ghost, as they'll pretty much have energy stacked up the wazoo, but it takes 2 snipes to kill a Templar. So getting that snipe off, the double snipe off before feedback goes down, not an easy thing to do, as both are insta-cast. So that's where we see a lot of the high level control in this game, and Lucifron has had no problem with these snipes thus far. What he is having a problem with, though, is his economy. Again, Zealots warped in here will drive this back. 3 Marines and a single Marauder will actually not defend against these Zealots that are pushing. And Lucifron coming in from the south. Again, StarNaN, when will you take the fight? He's biding his time, and intelligently so, but he's about to lose everything once again. This was his newly found production. He's got no Templars available, at least nearby. I think he had one at his 3rd, but it was killed off. Scared to engage with the Colossus because, of course, the Viking count is so scary. And with the SimCity, the Archons can't get under this, which means StarNaN will be driven back. And someone who I thought was going to win this game outright mere moments ago, looks like he's going to take some of the game-ending damage from Lucifron. However, Lucifron knows he can't overpress the issue here. He's got a massive Viking count with the last Colossus going down. He might actually take this fight, but there's so many ghosts, so many EMPs. Everything just getting absolutely blanketed. Storms for the Terran, EMPs for the Protoss. Lots of damage going out right now. Probes do evacuate, and StarNaN has the resources to start another base. He's still mining off of this one, but there's no gateways. There's 6 gateways, but half of them are depowered or randomly scattered throughout the map. In fact, I believe every single one of them at this point is in fact depowered. Oh gosh, this went from being a very even game very quickly to a very one-sided match. But again, Lucifron with no mining, no income. Literally zero SCVs on the field. Capability of making 1, but of course has mules. Not even going to be focused on that, however. Knows he has to press the issue with this army. Now, in a straight-up base trade scenario, Lucifron can't really take it, but his army is so large that he can just overpower his opponent. If StarNaN loses everything he has right here, that's going to be game. He knows he'll eventually bleed out afterwards, and we see the last valiant stand of our Protoss player. A couple really good storms actually going off, but the Medivac still has so much energy. No problem replenishing health of these units, and going down to almost nothing at this point. Units count dwindling, and the worker kills just racking up. We almost have 100 worker kills for Lucifron. Oh wait, no, the StarNaN with 100 worker kills. What? Both players with an insane amount of worker kills this game, combined well over 100. So, congratulations to both. But good game is called. And I keep calling him San, didn't I? StarNaN. Oh, my bad. We'll tap out, and Lucifron will take another victory from Mouz Sports.